and welcome to the Atticus Hour. Today we will be learning about 3 U.S. presidents. Don't worry, they're not recent. Okay, let's start. First we have William Henry Harrison. Then we'll go on later and go to Franklin Pierce. And then we'll go on even later and go to Warren G. Harding. Let's start with the earliest first. William Henry Harrison. Now, this guy's not remembered for a lot of things during his presidency because he only served a month. Now, it's not because he wanted to, because a person wants to be president, let me tell you that. Okay, so this guy, he was a war hero in the Battle of Tippecanoe, and now they felt they needed like an anti-Andrew Jackson. No, not an anti-Andrew Jackson. No, wait a minute. No, anti-Andrew Jackson. Like him. So they picked this guy, even though he was not born in a log cabin. He was still famous for having the log cabin slogan in the election of 1840 when he ran against Democrat Martin Van Buren, which is my favorite president. I'm so sad that he won, this guy. Anyway, so, William Henry Harrison, since at the time he was the oldest president at 68, he was accused about his age. People thought he was too old to become president. And so, he tried to get rid of that to tell people who he truly was. So he gave the longest inaugural address in American political history, nearly 2 hours, and then he caught a cold, which turned to pneumonia since they didn't have good medicine. He died just a month after he got inaugurated, and that's it for him. So let's go on to later. He was our William Henry Harrison was our 9th president, but this guy is Franklin Pierce, and he was our 14th president from 1853 to 1857. Now, his presidency really stinks because he probably had the saddest one. So, Franklin Pierce, just a few weeks into his presidency, at first, both of his 2 sons died because of diseases and fevers. So they only had one remaining child, and his name was an 11-year-old boy named Benny. And Pierce's wife Jane and Benny were on a train ride when the train crashed. Pierce and Jane just got a little bit injured, but they survived, but Benny died. Pierce had to live with that because he felt really bad about it because that was their last surviving child. Now, following that was the death of his vice president, William Rufus King, just 6 weeks after the inauguration. And don't worry, things were about to get worse. In 1854, Pierce had a meeting with members of his own party in the White House, and Stephen A. Douglas, a member of his cabinet, informed Pierce that he was working on a new bill called the Kansas-Nebraska Act. It interfered kind of with the Missouri Compromise of 1820 all the way during James Monroe's presidency, in which the states below Missouri would have slaves, though the states above it would have none. The 2 territories above Missouri were Kansas and Nebraska, and they had to choose whether they would want to be a free state or have slaves. And immediately, a little-known politician from Illinois, Abraham Lincoln, got into this. And I know you all know Abraham Lincoln. Now, at the time, a lot of people didn't know him because he was just a little-known politician from Illinois. But then he made a party to oppose the issue of slavery, so he made the Republican Party. Franklin Pierce really disagreed with that party because, as you can see on the back of his card, he was a Democrat. So yeah. Then meanwhile, in 1856, Kansas and Nebraska were literally fighting it out. And in 1856, the territory of Nebraska or abolitionists from there burned Flores, Kansas down to the ground. And in 1856, when he tried to run for re-election, his own party rejected him. And he returned back to New Hampshire, his reputation ruined, and when his wife, Jane, died, he returned to really spending the rest of his life as a really weird guy, maybe a recluse. Perhaps the saddest legacy. That's why it stinks. Anyway, on to the last president we're going to be learning about, and this was a Republican. Now, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, so you don't have to agree on this, whoever's watching this. But in my opinion, the first Republicans were really good, including Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, and Theodore Roosevelt and William McKinley. Though he was a Republican who, in my opinion, turned bad. It turned bad during Theodore Roosevelt's and Woodrow Wilson's era. And Warren Harding came after Woodrow Wilson's era. The Republicans and Democrats changed, and the Democrats were now good guys, and the Republicans were now bad guys, in my opinion. Yeah. So, he is the only president to be elected on his birthday, November 2nd, which is kind of obvious because usually elections are at the beginning of November. Yeah, there's not really much to say about this guy. He signed an act in 1921. People thought he was good with the Senate, good with affairs, good with a lot of things. People thought he was good with the presidency. In 1923, Harding was the first sitting president to visit Alaska because he took a train trip west. And then on July 29th, 1923, he and his wife checked into a San Francisco hotel to recuperate because Harding's health was failing. And 4 days later, on August 2nd, 1923, Harding suffered a heart attack, and Florence pleaded with the doctors to save him, but it was too late. Harding was dead. And people really don't like Harding today, let me tell you that. And there were a lot of scandals going on. Less than a year after Harding's death, the Secretary of Interior, Albert Fall, was accused for improperly giving oil to oil companies and oil factories in return for money and goods and all those exchanges. And then two books were published that may have that stated what might have had the cause of Harding's death. One insisted that Florence, the president's wife, had poisoned him, which I don't believe at all. I think it was natural cause. And second was by Cam Britton, who had once had an affair with Harding and had given birth to his daughter. And that's really all to say about this president. So those were the three presidents we learned about. We learned about how William Henry Harrison became the first president to die in office. this guy's presidency stunk or stinks. Whatever. And this presidency, really, there's nothing to say about this guy. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Atticus Hour.